Yesterday, Joe Biden didn't used to infuriate me quite as much as he does now. I mean, he's always irritated me, but it wasn't like listening to Barack Obama, for instance. It is now. I mean, I think he's bought in completely to Marxist theory now. He's a naked Marxist like the rest of them now. And maybe that's just everybody in leadership in the Democrat Party. Maybe they've all just caved in. But it's agonizing to listen to this infrastructure stuff, as well as the poor being fleeced. Here he is. Todd, did you see much of this speech yesterday?
Not much of it, no. I try to avoid and keep my sanity, but it was as the clips I've seen were as agonizing as you'd expect.
He's trying to justify spending $2.5 trillion right now, and 5% of that is going to actual infrastructure. So now everything's just infrastructure.
Yes,
everything
that was the
is infrastructure.
Gillibrand construction yesterday.
She got bludgeoned for that.
Just basically saying, "Oh well, health, elder
child care is infrastructure."
Right. Okay. Well,
so
is it? He's
no.
listing all things
no,
and just saying they're infrastructure, which now the left has decided to say anything they believe is important is infrastructure. Anything they want equals infrastructure, which means that infrastructure has no definition. It's just
right.
It's just all, I mean, as far as policy goes, it's just everything.
But that's what they do, right? It's
what they want.
When they're up against it, they just change the definition of words.
Everything that opposes them is racist, for example.
So she got hammered with that a little bit yesterday. Somebody tweeted out, "Yeah, your mom and my ass are infrastructure."
Right.
I love that.
And Gillibrand's a bit of a dummy. Like,
of course,
you could tell when in the campaign when she was pressed and people were actually paying attention to her, which was does not happen at any other point in her career. You realize she really doesn't have much going on. This is not a Democratic rising star. This is someone who was able to luck into a seat based on circumstances in a very blue state and doesn't bring much to the table. Anyone who would think that's a good idea to tweet obviously is not exactly a thinking person.
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Yeah, and the lights aren't always on.
Yeah, that's true. That is
we
true.
We should point out the lights. There's problems with the lights. There's a short. It's not all. They're not always on, but there's never anyone home.
There's rolling blackouts.
It's an abandoned cabin in the woods.
Yes,
and occasionally the lights kind of come on. Maybe it's a really badly placed solar panel. Keeping the lights on. It's under a lot of shade.
Yep.
Maybe occasionally a streak of light hits that solar panel, keep the lights go on for 4 or 5 minutes that night, but that's about it.
But because they're trying to sell this tax increase to pay for this $2.5 trillion bill.
Which, wasn't it $2 trillion just a week ago?
Yeah,
now it's 2.5?
2.5 already. Well, this is what happens, though. By the time they're done with it, I'll bet you it'll be 3.
Yeah.
It'll be $3 trillion. So here is Biden trying to convince us that the poor are being fleeced.
We're going to raise the corporate tax rate. It was 35%.
35
for the longest time.
That wasn't good.
Which was too high.
Yes.
Barack and I thought it was too high during our administration.
Did you?
We all agreed 5 years ago that it should come down somewhat. But the previous administration reduced it all the way down to 21%.
Oh, my gosh. That's horrible.
What I'm proposing is that we meet in the middle. 28%.
Right.
28% would still have lower corporate rates than any time between World War II and 2017.
Pause it for a second, if you can. We're not competing with ourselves from the past. What we're competing with is the rest of the world.
Well, no, there's some companies, though, that were like, we were thinking about taking the 1965 tax rate from the United States and executing that.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to do that?
No. They could do that, I guess.
Yeah.
If a Belgian company wanted to increase their corporate rate to what ours was in 1965, they could. It just wouldn't be intelligent. What we're competing with are companies who are paying 15% corporate tax rates. I mean, ours has traditionally been one of the highest, if not the highest, corporate tax rate in the world. And we're supposed to be capitalists. We're supposed to be free market people. And so this argument is just completely unrelated to the problem at hand.
And
it's ridiculous.
And this really does put, it's not as high as 35, as he points out, but 28 would still put it right back up at one of the highest in the world again. We would have the same problem we
and you'd
had
probably
before.
lose corporations again because of it.
Yeah. It really is unfortunate. I mean, the 21% income tax rate showed real signs of making these companies grow, and it did seem to induce a raging economy before the coronavirus hit. Now, did it have enough time before COVID for us to know the full impact of it? I don't know. I mean, I don't even know we knew that. Remember, these are long-term plans, and this is the biggest sin of this overall, in that companies can't plan for this stuff, because every 2 years, then the new administration comes in and starts screwing with these rates. Companies can't plan. They don't want to deal with. One of the big upsides of having your company in America, supposedly, is stability.
Right.
A lot of companies are willing to pay a little bit higher rate because they realize, okay, this is a stable country. They understand that capitalism is important. They're the people who kind of brought it to us, so it's not going anywhere. Well, that's not the case anymore. I mean, they can't look at this country fairly and honestly and tell their shareholders, oh, there's no big deal. This is fine. You have people who have the entire zeitgeist of the left, people like AOC, who are basically begging for capitalism to go away completely. So you no longer have that sort of stability. These are not fringe members. These are the people leading the media coverage on a daily basis. And obviously, you see with the spending that's going on right now, they've had real impact. We've talked about this before, but Barack Obama was terrified of getting to $1 trillion on his big plans, including Obamacare. They did everything they could to lie and say it was under $1 trillion because they were terrified of what the American people would think.
That fear is long gone.
It's long gone.
Yeah,
now 2, 3, 4. What was it? I mean, we just said $2 trillion to $2.5 trillion. That's almost the entire stimulus bill from Barack Obama. just the change we didn't notice in the last week. Like, oh, it was $2 trillion package. Now it's a $2.5 trillion package. I mean, that's 2/3 of what Barack Obama wanted to spend for the big bailout and infrastructure spend back in 2009.
Yeah.
It just, there's no shame anymore in this stuff. It's just print, spend. New restrictions, new seemingly unconstitutional laws and rules. No one seems to care right now.
And he had a lot more to say about it.
It will generate over $1 trillion in taxes over 15 years.
Why would you?
New independent study put out last week found that at least 55 of our largest corporations use the various loopholes to pay zero federal income tax in 2020.
So dishonest.
It's just not fair. It's not fair to the rest of the American taxpayers. We're going to try to put an end to this. Not fleece them. 28%.
Of course.
If you're a mom and dad, a cop, firefighter, police officer, etc., you're paying close to that in your income tax. I've also proposed the global minimum tax, which is being proposed around the world for U.S. corporations at 20%. Let me tell you what that means.
20 pun
It means that
Pause for a second.
Pat, 20 pun percent is the wrong percentage.
I think it is too.
I think it is.
20 pun percent? I don't even know what to say about 20 pun percent.
Yeah,
I
feel almost speechless of my commentary on 20 pun percent. I don't know exactly how to. It feels wrong, but other than that, I can't describe why it's wrong.
So here's what he's proposing. Then so you're raising the corporate tax rate to 28%. Now you're going to also add a 21% global tax. Is that what he's saying?
Well, a minimum tax.
A minimum.
21%.
21.
The idea being that everyone else needs to raise their rates.
That?
Right.
Who administers the global tax to every corporation in the world?
There's no such entity.
There's no entity that can do that.
Right. I mean, and the concept is, it's basically a confirmation of what we were just talking about. They know
then we're going to lose corporations.
These companies keep these countries keep lowering their rates to get companies to go there.
Yep.
So we need to. What if we stopped the competition? It's like basically saying like McDonald's wants to charge $5 for their Big Mac, and they're like, what if we propose a global fast food burger price? You can't go under $4.85. Well, then they'd be really competitive, I guess, right? Because they'd only be 15 cents more.
Yeah,
I mean, we'd still
Burger King
be
is
more.
forced to charge $4.85 for their yes. Now you're not going to lose that many customers to Burger King.
Right. They're not going to, the cost isn't going to be an issue. And that's what he's proposing here. It's complete. It's embarrassing.
And it's unconstitutional, I'm sure.
And it's also, well, I don't know if it's unconstitutional because it seems like it's just they're just hoping everyone does it type of thing. It's like it's not like we certainly can't implement it on these other countries.
Through the G20 though, they're going to try to force it.
They're just going to try to force it through.
Yeah,
now we'll see how the structure of that comes down. But did you also notice the sleight of hand at the beginning of that clip? When you do one of these bills, have we not been around for a while here? Mm-hmm. When you do one of these bills, you talk about how much it costs and how much taxes are going to be raised in 10 years.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Why is he talking about how much it's going to raise in 15 years? Well, the reason for that is he even knows with his crappy projections, they can't get this to work by saying 10 years of taxes will pay for it. So what they have done is they're talking about 15 years of taxes to pay for 8 years of spending. 15 years of taxes to pay for 8 years of spending. Therefore, it's quote unquote paid for. It's so disingenuous.
That is incredible.
And you'll hear, I mean, that's why he's talking about 15 years. Because that is legitimately in the bill. They know they can't pay for it, so they're just going to screw with the year. They're going to keep the cost on the board for 15 years and the spending on the board for 8 years. Now, as we all know, as if we're complete idiots, at the end of that 8 years, all of these things are going to be extended. So you're going to get 15 years of spending, and you're going to 15 years of taxes won't cover it. 15 years of taxes only covers 8 years of spending. So then we're going to have to raise taxes again. Mm-hmm. They're telling you
and
this
not at
in
the
advance.
end of the 15 years, but before that ends.
Oh, yeah.
After 8, they'll ask for another tax hike.
The second they can is the real answer. The second they can get them raised, they'll do it again, and they'll justify, look, we had this great thing, and it did so much good, but, you know, the Republicans wouldn't let us go to 35%. They said it was too high. Wait a minute. Didn't you say it was too high, Joe? They'll just forget about that.
He won't remember that. Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't remember it now, let alone in 8 years.